How's it going, guys? Cody, guys, back again, dropping out another video. Right, guys, this is a story in the Huffington Post. Link in the description below, like I always do. Headline reads, releasing prisoners from jail on Fridays heightens the risk of reoffending. Ex-offenders struggle to access crucial support over the weekend, campaigners say. Releasing prisoners from jail on Fridays heightens the risk of them going on to commit more crimes, according to campaigners who want to end the practice. Those granted freedom just before the weekend face an uphill battle to access emergency accommodation, vital prescription medications and addiction support in just one day. Many are left with just £46 discharge grant every former prisoner is issued with, and some ended up spending the weekends on the streets. Ministry of Justice figures show a third of all prison releases take place on a Friday, as all inmates scheduled with release dates which fall on a Saturday, Sunday or bank holiday Monday are brought forward. But rehabilitation experts warn the practice to end and have launched a campaign to put pressure on the government to change its system. National social justice charity NACRO believes ending the practice would make a significant difference to people leaving prison and would cut reoffending rates, which have remained high over the past decade, fluctuating between 32% and 29%. Robert Elias, a resettlement worker, told the Huffington Post, Friday releases are very problematic as there are several things that need to be sorted on release, but a lot of places are winding down on a Friday, especially on a bank holiday weekend. A lot of emergency housing stock have already been allocated for the week. One of the requirements is for prisoners to see the probation officer within 3 days of release. So if they're released on a Friday, they definitely have to be seen that day, as the third day would be a Sunday. Elias said many of the people he works with struggle with mental health problems or alcohol or drug dependencies, which means getting access to prescription medication is a priority. In one case, a prisoner he worked with, named only as Michael, was released on a Friday before a bank holiday weekend after serving a year in custody. He had an addiction to heroin but was not given prescription charts from prison medical staff on his release to determine his dose of methadone. Elias said as it was late Friday afternoon, the GP from the substance misuse service had left and we were unable to get him his medication. Michael was vulnerable and entitled to priority housing. However, the local authority did not deem him to be a priority as it was a Friday afternoon. He didn't have time to gather the further evidence needed to prove this before the weekend. Michael spent the weekend sleeping in a known drug house and ended up using heroin. He was clean of the heroin before he came in, but his Friday release had an impact on him. He said releasing Michael earlier in the week would have given him faster access to medical services and increased his chances of finding a suitable place to sleep. It says here, Friday releases make things worse, especially when you have mental health issues. Daniel, 39, has been in and out of prison up to 20 times in his life. He told the Huffington Post UK his issues began when he was a victim of a knife attack at the age of 21 and began suffering with mental health issues, including post-traumatic stress disorder, which have deteriorated over the past decade. He's been released several times on a Friday and says he knows from experience it makes things far more difficult. Clayton was among one group of prisoners released on a Friday, of which one member took his own life on the Saturday as he faced living on the streets and felt unable to deal with what lay ahead. Clayton, who has spent a lot of time sleeping rough, and after the knife attack, he says, my mental health deteriorated so badly, I lost all my money and I just couldn't manage. I developed an addiction to painkillers which turned into a drug addiction. I've been to prison for things like theft and stealing to eat. Being released from prison on a Friday, being released from prison at any time when you have mental health issues is very difficult, but on a Friday, it's a lot worse. As it almost guaranteed you will get sent away from urgent agencies you go for help. Unfortunately, on a Friday, you don't have the luxury of attending the following day or challenging a decision if you are refused housing. I am still very mentally ill and have suicidal thoughts, and without the support of NACRO and Robert fighting my corner, I think I would be dead. NACRO Chief Executive Jacob Tass told Huffington Post UK, stopping Friday releases would stop people going off the rails, and staff on the front line say it would be a thing that they could change to have a positive effect. Friday releases can make an already challenging day impossible and increase the likelihood that people will reoffend and fall back into bad ways. We believe there are immediate, simple and cost-effective steps that could be taken by government and prison governors to ensure Friday releases are avoided. TAS said this is an important window of opportunity upon an offender's release in which would help them to turn their back on a life of crime. A Ministry of Justice spokesman said the government was in the process of reviewing Friday release dates. We're taking decisive action to improve the delivery of probation services in England and Wales, including investing £22 million in extra support for offenders leaving prison, he added. As outlined in our recent consultation on probation reform, we are already considering whether a Friday release date presents challenges to people coming out of prison. We'll report the results of this in due course. Now, I've been released on Friday on 2 occasions. I understand what they're saying, 1,000,000%. You've got to be inclined to agree. How can you go to probation, right? You could be there for ages because they've got slots and stuff. You've got to fit into that slots when they've got time. Then you've got to, like I say, you've got to go to let's say you leave prison, you're homeless, you've got £46 in your pocket, you've got to go to probation. You get your license conditions upon release, you go to probation, check in with them. Then you've got to, like I said, you might have to go to the doctors or try to get an emergency appointment at the doctors, because if you are drug dependent and you are on a methadone script or Subutex, you need that medication, otherwise you're going to be desperately ill. And if you've got £46 in your pocket and you can't get an appointment that day, there's a high probability that you're going to buy heroin, obviously, citrus acid that they use, burn it with a spoon, inject it, right? Then they're straight back on the drug if they wasn't already using when they was in prison, which a lot of drug users do. They were then at risk of overdose and stuff like that, but they're back on the drugs. How do they feed that drug habit? They commit crime. So I'm inclined to, you've got to agree with that. Housing, again, it's very arduous. You've got to declare yourself homeless. If you've got no kids with you, stuff like that, even if you're mentally ill, how do you get to the doctors to get a letter to go to the housing to say, this is a letter from my doctor, I am at serious risk, I am very vulnerable, I need somewhere to stay 2 nights, or, you know what I mean, the worst could happen, you can't get into the doctors. So I'm very much inclined to agree with it. I've got to agree. It sounds silly to you guys that don't know about prison. If you've been in the system, you'll know exactly what's going on. It's a very good point. Imagine if you're released on a Friday morning, right? Because like I say, Friday is a busy day for releases and stuff. You'll have more releases on a Friday than you will on a Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, or a Monday. Why? Because like you said, you prisoners are getting out on a Friday. Your prisoners are getting out on a Saturday, you're getting out on the Friday. Prisoners are getting out on a Sunday, the release date falls on Sunday, they're getting out on a Friday. And if it's a bank holiday, the bank holiday Monday, you're getting out on the Friday. So you've got to think about how many groups are actually leaving prison that day. Like I said, I've been very blessed to have somewhere to come back to. Was in danger of losing it, moved and started again and stuff. But like I say, I was one of the lucky ones. There are a lot of people that leave prison with nowhere to live, guys. They've got no support network, no friends or family. That might sound crazy. It's the reality. I've been in prison with people that have lost their accommodation whilst in prison and have become addicted to drugs as a coping mechanism because they're scared of being released. Or they've racked up charges so they stay in prison so they don't have to get released because they don't want to be homeless. I've been in prison with lads that when we was being released, he was like, where are you going with your £46? This was at Strangeways. I said, I'm going straight to Bury New Road, Cheetah Mill, Bury New Road as they call it, near Strangeways prison to score drugs. It's the reality, guys, sadly. Definitely agree with the story. Definitely think they should do releases Monday through Thursday. And then, like I say, if you're getting out on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or a bank holiday Monday, you should be released on the Thursday. Just my opinion. Let me know what you think about the story, guys. Link in the description. Like, comment, subscribe. Cody out.